Hi everyone, it's Shari here, and today I'm going to be making this watercolored hot air balloon card. This week on the lawnfawn blog, we are playing with Marvy products that they sent us. So I got these glitter markers and these watercolor twist crayon type things here, and they just twist up. And it actually comes with a paintbrush so that you can watercolor with them, but they also sent these water brushes, and that's what I'm going to be using in my video today. It's the bigger water brush. So there's a bigger tipped one, which I've already played with, which is why it's dirty, and then a more detailed brush. And I've already filled these up with water, so they're ready to go. And I'm going to be using some Canson watercolor paper. This is the pad that I'm using, but I've already cut a little piece down here. And I've also already die cut a piece of this same watercolor paper with the Stitched Clouds portrait backdrop. So that's what I'm going to start with to create my card, is these clouds. And this is the set we're going to be using with the hot air balloons as well. So I'm going to start with the background, and the look I wanted to get was more of a soft blue with a darker halo around the clouds. So I'm going to be using the lighter blue that comes in this pack. And I believe these watercolor twist crayons come in a pack with more colors, but this is just the ones that they sent me to use. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go right around the edge of the clouds, creating a nice fat line with this color. And that way when I add my water, it'll be darker right at the clouds and then kind of wash out to the center between them. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to, like I said, wash out when you add the water. The pigment's going to disperse and you're not going to see the line. So it doesn't matter if you've cut it fatter in one place or thinner in one place. It's really not going to matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this around all the clouds. And then I've got the water brush here, and to get the water really going, give it a good squeeze, but that's actually too much water. So I've got my paper towel here to just dab it off if I feel like I've got too much water flow going on. I like to feel like I have a little more control. So I'm just going to get that wet right around that perimeter and then start to pull that pigment out away from the clouds. You can see it gets really soft blue between the clouds, but yet a little bit darker halo right around them. And if you feel like you're getting too much water, I'm just dabbing it off on that paper towel up there, because I don't want to get too much. I don't want it to overflow into my cloud. I want my cloud to stay white. And I'm just going to do this to the whole background. So I've done the center part here. I'm working my way towards the bottom. And some of them look a little darker than others, but I kind of like the look, the imperfection of some darker spots and some lighter spots. I just didn't want my background to be too overpowering. I wanted the hot air balloons to stand out a lot more. So I thought this was a really cool effect that you could do with these crayons. And I've got it almost completely finished at the top. Now if you wanted to add more color, you could let it dry and then go back in and add some more color if you wanted it a little darker, but I like the way this turned out just as I wanted it. Now these glitter markers, I've already primed them and got them going. But they just put down the glitter. So this was a little hard to see because it's just silver glitter. So the color of the cap is the glitter that it puts down, and the solution that the glitter's in is completely clear. So you're not going to get like a purple line or a gold line or a red line. You're just going to get the glitter. So they're not the greatest for writing with, but I thought that this worked out pretty well. So I'm just adding some of that glitter all over the cloud. I know it's hard to see, and you can see my marker strokes. It's kind of hard to see in video because it's a really light glitter, But you can actually blend it out with the water, which is what I did. So I took that water brush, added the water to that glitter, and just kind of watercolored the glitter, and it got rid of those strokes that the marker nib left, and just kind of gave it a wash of glitter across those clouds. Now this one's pretty even, but what you can do on some of them, what I did was I did more glitter around the perimeter of the cloud and then kind of pulled it into the cloud, and it gave it a little more highlight of glitter in certain places. So you can see I'm doing that here. I'm just tracing around it, and I'm adding more glitter to the edges. I'm not going to color the whole thing, just around like the tops and the bottoms, and then I'm going to take that water brush and pull that glitter across the whole cloud. So the whole cloud will be glittery, but there'll be a little more concentration of it on the edges, which is kind of a cool look as well. So now that I've got all my clouds glittered, you got that nice shine there, I can move on to my stamped images. And I am using the Lawnfawn Jet Black ink here because I can watercolor with water and this ink is not going to smear. So I'm just stamping this on that other piece of watercolor paper. It's the same paper that I did the background with. I'm going to stamp out the big balloon and the small balloon, and I'm also going to stamp out those little pennant banners that fit across that big balloon as well. So this is going to be super speedy, but I didn't want you to miss any of the coloring since we're using these kind of new products here. So I'm pulling out the colors I want to use. I'm going to make the big balloon warm colors, and I'm going to make the smaller balloon cooler colors, but I didn't want to use blue since I have so much blue in the background. So you can see I'm starting with the orange here in the center, and right now I don't have a lot of water flowing, and it's kind of making, you can see the lines, it's not very even. And you're going to see here in a minute, I'm going to really get it flowing, and now it's moving around. And then I'm going to move on to the color that's on the edge because I don't want to do the color right beside what's still wet. I'm afraid that they'll run together. So I'm kind of skipping to the outside edge with the red here. And then I can move on to the yellow. Now this yellow is super bright. It's a really pretty yellow, but I kind of wanted it a little more orangey yellow, so I'm adding in the orange on top of it. And then when I add my water, those two colors will blend together and make it a more orangey yellow than that bright sunshine yellow that it is. So now I can move on to my smaller balloon here, and I'm going to do the purple in the center. And I've got two shades of green, so I'm going to do this darker green on the outside, same way I did the larger one. And it was still a little wet, and I didn't want to do the next color with it being so wet, so I'm just drying it a little faster using my heat tool, which doesn't change the look of the color at all, so you can certainly do that if you wanted to. And then this is more of a limey green, which is really pretty, more of a yellowy green. And once it's dry, you can add more color. And what I did discover with these is if you try to color the color when it's still wet, it'll go on, but it won't blend out. And you'll get those strokes of the crayon if you try to add more while it's still wet. So there's my little tip, is just do it when it's dry. You can make it darker and layer it up. Now I decided I was going to use the darker blue for these little pennants here, and I actually meant to do it purple and blue, so I added a little purple into some, hoping that it would kind of make them all not quite exactly the same, but that'll be a nice pop on that big balloon. So now I'm going to use those colored glitters, and I'm just adding a little bit of the blue glitter to the bottom of the pennants, just for a little shine. And I'm going to add some of the red just at the bottom and the top, kind of where I colored the crayon before, those darker areas, just for a little glitter highlight. And I've got a green one in this pack too, so I'm going to do the same thing on the little one and add some of the green. Now this one, I poked it so it get flowing, and you see how much comes out. So you kind of want to test it on a sheet of paper before you go straight to paper if you're just now getting the glitter going, because you might end up with too much and you really don't want to ruin your project by that happening. So now I've used my dies to die cut them out. And I just used some Post-it note tape to hold those down. My tape happens to be blue right now. And I decided that I didn't want this background to go all the way to the edge of my card. I wanted there to be a border around it. Right now I'm figuring out exactly how I want them. And the spacing is such that I think I can cut a very small border. So I'm using the largest of those new outside in stitch rectangles, which is going to cut just a very small border and then also leave that nice stitching detail on the edge. I didn't want to put the tape on my glitter though because I was afraid it would pull it up. So I'm just wrapping it around the back. And now I have a nice stitched edge on my cloudy backdrop. Now I've got a piece of Sugarplum purple cardstock there, and I'm just going to use some really good adhesive. This is the Tombow Extreme adhesive. This is what I use, especially when a piece of paper like this that I've put water on and it's not quite flat, it's a little warped. This is going to hold it down really well to the card base. So now you can see I've got a nice thin purple border around my card. So I'm figuring out how I want my sentiment. I already had that happy embossed on black and die cut. I just cut a whole bunch of them at one point because I really like that sentiment. So I just keep them in a little bowl on my desk. So I'm going to stamp the birthday part, and I'm lined it up to where it goes right between some clouds. So I'm not going to be stamping on any of the glitter. I'm not sure if this ink would stick to the glitter really well or not. This is actually VersaFine ink because I think it gives a really nice crisp image. And if ever you're worried about something bleeding, the VersaFine doesn't really do that because it's not water-based, it's oil-based. And then I'm just going to use some liquid glue to add that little die cut white embossed happy on the black cardstock. This might be actually my last happy that was on my desk, so I'm going to have to heat emboss and die cut some more so I have them on hand. Now I can add my balloons, and I'm going to use some foam adhesives to add these. I'm going to use these thin ones, which are half the thickness, for the little one because it's going to be in the background. So it'll pop it up off the card, but not pop it up as far as the big one. And then for the big one, I'm going to use some full thickness adhesive squares. These are from Scrapbook Adhesives. I just like how you can use the two thicknesses and get some dimension between your two elements. It also makes it really easy to tuck that smaller balloon with the thinner adhesive behind the other one. So I'm putting the big one down first because its basket tucks right into that happy sentiment, so its placement's a little more important than the small one. And then now I can pull off all those adhesive backers and tuck the small one right in behind the big one there. And there is the finished card. So it's got some shimmer, which is a little hard to see on camera, but it's really pretty in real life because those clouds just have some nice shimmer, but it's not overpowering. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.